Hey everybody, this is Talking of Carl back again for another Halloween movie review. And I'll be covering Batman versus Dracula. Uh I want to say it's based all right, two things. It is based kind of loosely off of the Batman Elseworlds comic Batman Red Rain, where Batman becomes a vampire in order to stop Dracula. I never read the story, but I know bits and pieces and how it ends. Because I usually don't like, bleak endings to certain stories, but it ends with Batman. Well, I don't want to spoil it. Maybe at some point I'll do a review on it in the future, but you can also read it yourself. You know how it ends. I'm not gonna spoil it here, but it's loosely based off of that. Uh, there's been other tales of Batman fighting Dracula, which is kind of like makes sense, with given how which they kind of touch it on this animated film, where Batman is kind of you know uh uh you know you know of Dracula. Well, no, Batman was kind of inspired by creatures of the night like Dracula, given the fact that they both you know uh uh prey on people, except Batman attacks and deals with criminals and use fear in order to intimidate and what is it, the line where it's like from Batman Begins, uh theatricality and deception are powerful agents. So yeah, use fear in order to you know on criminals. Well, Dracula does it just on anybody. He uses fear in order to strike fear and terror into hearts of innocent people. uh uh a lot of the characters come from the Batman 2004 animated series, and I really want to cover that, but I think maybe next year. I'm not 100% sure how much I can fit, because I want to do like the Batman the animated series first, and that's like uh at least 3 seasons, 3 4 seasons. Pretty sure it's 3 seasons. uh well, counting Batman and Robin, which tangentially is part of the animated series, I think it's like 4 seasons. Then uh Batman Beyond, because kind of like feeds into that a bit. Then Batman Brave and the Bold. Well, no, then Batman Brave and the Bold is like the crucial Batman TV shows that I want to cover. Very Next year probably gonna be very Batman heavy, because I covered all the Batman, well, not every Batman movie, but a good chunk of at least live action Batman films I covered before on a channel, which you can check out on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkative Carl. But there's certain animated films I haven't covered. I might cover Batman Under the Red Hood next year. But yeah, it's going pretty, in terms of TV shows, it's gonna be pretty Batman heavy. But I always loved the Batman. That was a very, I well, I want to say, like, you can make the argument that, because Batman the Animated Series is the GOAT. You cannot deny it. But, I argue Batman Beyond, Batman Brave and the Bold, and the Batman you can argue, give it a run for its money in terms of quality of the voice actors. Each have their own unique animation style to it, but their own unique take on each of the Batman rogues gallery, uh, and longevity. So yeah, but yeah, I'll speak on those when I get a chance. But yeah, there's definitely some reprising roles from the show that come into for this film. We got Rhino Romano playing Bruce Wayne and the Batman. We got Peter Stormare, who voiced Count Dracula here. This is his only time coming into this kind of thing. But we got Tara Strong as Vicky Vale again, Tom Kenny as Oswald Cobblepot the Penguin, Kevin Michael Richardson as the Joker, and Alistair Duncan as Alfred Pennyworth. And I love this Alfred Pennyworth a lot because he's a little bit more. I think this Alfred Pennyworth is a little bit more active than any other Alfred Pennyworth in any other animated Batman TV shows. Because he, it's rare, but whenever he has to come in, I remember when Batman, and this is in the first season in the Batman, where Bane first, starts first showing up, and Batman first tagging with him, and he kind of like wasn't, I don't want to say underestimate him, but he didn't. This is the first time meeting him, so he doesn't know about Venom and his capabilities. So Batman got his bell rung, and Alfred has to come in and pick him up, and this would be the first time that Alfred had to step in. It was like one that kind of jumped out at me, but you really never saw Alfred in the original animated series come in like that, and you really don't see him at all in Batman Brave and the Bold. Batman Beyond, he already passed away. Well, then there's like Beware the Batman. He's a little bit more active there too, but it only had that one season, so you really couldn't flush out. No, I think he had only 2 seasons, but in regard, you didn't have much time for him to really flush him out like that. I think in that TV show they kind of based that Alfred off of Michael Caine a little bit, because Nolan Batman was very heavy in the zeitgeist around that time. But anyway, and I highly recommend you guys check out the Batman TV show, which is, all the Batman TV shows are all on HBO Max, so definitely check it out. But the movie begins with this criminal in Arkham Asylum telling the Penguin about this this secret treasure trove that is hidden away somewhere in Gotham Cemetery. And he counted on Oswald Cobblepot, who is known to be able to break out of Arkham a lot more than most other people, and he's want to come in on the deal, and he seems a little bit more sane by comparison to anybody else. Although Oswald is kind of like a little perturbed, because upon agreeing to help him out in order to get a cut of the riches, the dude already told Joker, who the guy did not even think he wasn't. I don't think he was getting where I was coming from anyway, because he thought, oh, he's just crazy, so he's probably not gonna pay attention. But people vastly underestimate Joker because he's just crazy. He's just because he is crazy, but don't think he's not paying attention. And I want to take a moment to bring up here that I think a lot of people really, I won't say really, but they don't really care for this particular version of the Joker with the locks and the unique look to it. I understand. It took me, when I first watched the TV show, it took me a minute to get used to eventually I warmed up to this version of the Joker, but I understand people's reservations about how this, appearance looks. But it's just, I like Kevin Michael Richardson's unique take on the Joker. Uh, uh, like, I don't know how he, like, because everybody who's come in as Batman or come in as Joker, they have to do their own unique spin on it instead of just trying to copy the previous guy. You're not gonna do Mark Hamill. You gotta veer away from that, and just have that as like a a guide, but try to put your spin on it. And I really like Kevin Michael Richardson's take, but the design of it takes some getting used to, with the over exaggerated big teeth, and it's like him running around barefoot, which is kind of, that to this day that's kind of like weird, but I guess it kind of adds to the craziness to it. But it's still fun for him, because you gotta have fun when watching Joker doing his antics when you're watching these shows. Anyway, since Joker knows about this secret treasure, he calls a breakout, which gives Penguin the opportunity to bust out, leaving the other guy behind. So Batman shows up, and I love the whole Batwave thing. I always love that, where it's like anytime there's like, like a crime is in progress, you get like a kind of like a red alert, but it's a Batwave, like whip, 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 whip. Even though I'm thinking to myself, like, when I first saw the show, it's like, how is pinpoint the which, because like crimes happen like almost all the time, especially when something like Gotham. It's like, how can you funnel which one's more important? I guess you can argue where it's like the Batwave, because it never really specified this, but I just operating on assumption here that maybe Batman keyed into certain well, I don't know, it's keyed in maybe to like something like Arkham, for example, where it's like in case of the breakout, he gets a red alert, so he'll know immediately when to operate. It doesn't like do it whenever it's like a whenever somebody getting mugged. It's like it's I won't say it's like a waste, but it's like you be getting red alerts all the freaking time. Like it's kind of like with Superman, as he got super hearing, he hears almost everything, so he has to learn how to funnel to certain key things in order to know which one to act on, because you got to prioritize certain level of crime. Even though you want to take care of all of it, you can't. Even for Superman, it's physically impossible. So you got to funnel in like key things of importance, and it's like, and zero in on that. Anyway, Batman starts chasing down Joker and Penguin, but Penguin gives them the slip, while Batman just like focuses on Joker, and they're near this kind of like reservoir, and Joker slips. Batman tries to help him up, but he sees that joy buzzer thing, so he's like, you ain't getting me. So Joker lets go, and he forgets he still has an active buzzer on his hand, so he falls in the water and seemingly dies. So since Penguin's trail went cold, Batman went back to the Batcave, a little distraught on the fact that he let somebody die on his watch, even if it was the Joker. And now Alfred's trying to get him to focus on not only, because there's a thing with almost every like interpretation of Batman TV shows, where he's trying to like force Bruce into relationships, and you can say like, and I can see his point where he's trying to give him a life beyond just Batman. No pun intended. And hopefully finding like a nice girl would, and starting like a family would, you know, relieve a bit of that trauma he's still having around his neck like an albatross. Of course, it's Vicky Vale in this situation, which I like because you still got Catwoman in the TV show, but she's not part of this movie. But everybody knows Catwoman's his ideal wife, but DC Comics never want to pull that freaking trigger, and they teased us with the whole Batman Catwoman wedding, and then kind of like, I don't know, I'm pretty sure Tom King was working on that a couple of years ago, but then DC, head honchos in the comic book industry is like, no, drop that kind of situation because you don't want to age up the reader. The same thing they did with Peter Parker and Mary Jane, which is so freaking weird. It's like you can't tell stories because it'll be boring and still if they got like a solid relationship. I did like a it was an Elseworlds, or at least like a let's call it like a Elseworlds type of comic with about Spider-Girl, which you can watch on my YouTube channel, where in like a different universe where Peter Parker and Mary Jane got married, had their children, nothing went wrong. They had two children, one Mayday Parker and the other Benji Parker, and they lived a fairly stable life where Peter essentially retired, becomes like a CSI for the police, and Mayday Parker takes up the mantle of the daughter of Spider-Man. So you can feasibly do this, and Superman and Lois Lane has been married for, I think it's going on for a good, it's like should be nearly like 10-15 years, fairly around that time where like Superman and Lois has been married for quite some time, and you still manage to tell solid Superman stories. So and it's like you got plenty of superheroes that aren't with anybody seriously, or you can do the on again off again with other heroes, but legacy heroes like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, hell, even Wonder Woman, have her finally be with Steve Trevor. Right now reading Green Lantern, and he's dealing with the whole situation with Carol Ferris, and she's like engaged to some other dude, and he's kind of hung up on that, and it's like those two definitely need to be together. But it's just somebody like Blue Beetle or even Miles Morales, guys like that, or Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, these are, I don't want to say new characters, they've been around for a hot while, but they can do the whole on again off again with terms of relationships for the next 10 years if you wanted to, because they haven't been around as long to warrant, I know I'm gonna go off on a tangent here, but they haven't been around as long to warrant them to have like they don't have their own Lois Lanes or Steve Trevors yet. Of course, Miles Morales is hooking up with the daughter of the Vulture in granddaughter of the current comics right now. But who knows how long that lasts? That could easily, like I said, that can easily fizzle out or something like that. But you can play along that with Miles Morales for a good period. Maybe they can at some point 5-7 years around, they work there. Not that they've broken up right now, but I'm saying like if they choose to like end the relationship early next year or something like that, you can eventually a writer can easily, work that back around and do the whole on again, off again Black Cat situation like Peter did. But anyway, I like Vicky Vale in this, and she can be like the prominent thing because Batman had like a fair amount of good love interest. Silver St. Cloud, Vicky Vale, Catwoman, and Talia al Ghul. Even though everybody knows that aside from Talia al Ghul, who's the mother of Damian, Catwoman's probably like the best candidate because I'm pretty sure Vicky Vale by this point in the comics knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman, but she don't share that kind of understanding of this other side of his life, not the way Catwoman and Talia al Ghul will understand. They understand him probably a little bit better, a little bit more intimately than Vicky Vale ever could. You can argue Silver St. Cloud too, but not many people utilize Silver St. Cloud as much in comics like that. But Catwoman spent more time with Batman because she lives in Gotham. Sure, she travels here and there, but she eventually comes back to Gotham, and she's so she's probably a more ideal candidate because she spends a lot more time by comparison to any other person, and on top of the fact that knowing his other side and not trying to tear him away from all that. So you can make the argument. Anyway, Bruce is ironically, given the subject matter, is working on a machine to harness solar radiation for renewable energy and things like that. And I'm glad they kind of point this out because many people complain about like, oh, Batman, instead of like, using his money to help people, he just spends most of his time being Batman and just beating up insane people. I kind of wish that somebody in DC Comics just make maybe not a whole entire like book about, not like a graphic novel or anything like that, but just like having an issue or two in like a Batman run where Batman just goes to work and see what he does and talk with certain business people with Lucius Fox about making this particular machine that helps do renewable energy or clean water and stuff like that. But most other reasonable people also pointed out, and I agree, that it'll be a boring comic to a lot of readers because there isn't no fighting or anything like that. Or you can include him doing some Batman stuff, but that's maybe like 5% of a book, where the bulk of it is dedicated to seeing what Bruce Wayne does at his place of work. But not many people probably be hip to something like that. But it also just shut up those masses, telling like, oh, all he does is spend his money just beating up criminals. And it's like, no, he does philanthropy all the time. And if you watch any TV shows or watch any of the movies, you see him actually do stuff for the good of people, and sometimes that is turned against him by some criminal, but he does do stuff. So he has this solar unit that harnesses solar radiation that he's going to be unveiling soon. So he's focused on that, while Penguin shows up at the cemetery, finds this crypt, and he's looking, given the brief description the guy was giving him about like, oh, it's behind this kind of cross thing. And of course, it's a cemetery. How many crosses do you expect somebody to see? But of course, he didn't give other details because he knows that, I'm not going to fully trust you like that. You are the Penguin. So I want to keep the rest to myself until we get there, and we'll show you the rest of the way. But now Penguin has to play guesswork, and he ends up finding this crypt where Dracula's body is. Of course, he didn't think much of it. He just thinks it's some kind of, dead corpse. until he ends up cutting himself. And ironically, the blood, I'm kind of glad at least it didn't drip in his mouth. It's so cliche when it comes to stories like this, but it's just right down directly towards his heart. Revives him. Penguin runs, but the night watchman on the grounds gets attacked by Dracula, satiates him enough where he can actually speak and break out of his chains, and then puts Cobblepot under his thrall. So he needs like a familiar or a servant to take care of things during the day for him. And then Penguin explains to him that he's not in Transylvania anymore, he's in Gotham City. And you see like the history of how Dracula got here, when villagers staked his heart. Don't know why I didn't kill him, but it just kind of like crippled him to the point where he's like in permanent coma sleep. And they chained up the whole entire coffin he was in, shipped it off to the New World, and I guess ironically it just was buried underneath the ground where Gotham City would be later constructed, and it just forgot about. So now he's planning his, revitalization of his vampire horde by, feeding off people. Then they end up turning into vampires, and then eventually one night Batman sees, there's ironically a mugging, but the vampire watchman attacks the mugger, turns him into a vampire. Then he attacks the woman, turns her into a vampire, and Batman, didn't make it in time, and he attacks the watchman and starts beating him up. But you see like his knuckles on his costume is ripping, and it's fun to see Batman take on vampires, because the Batman skills is slightly above like an elite athlete, but he's still human, and these are supernatural creatures that has enhanced strength and durability and agility. So he's putting out all the stops just to like avoid attacks and just fight them off. But skilled as he is amazing. He just take on 3 vampires by himself, but just barely make it out. So he's at home. He's like, what the hell did I just witness here? I know what I saw, like big fangs. But Alfred is like thinking like, you must have been seeing things. You're tired, whatever. Let's try to focus on the party. And of course, at this time, he's dating Vicky Vale at the same time, so he invites her, and Dracula shows up. Thanks to Cobblepot's little, not so subtle hint about, because Cobblepot's and the Waynes already had a bit of a rivalry. That's why Penguin doesn't like Bruce Wayne so much. But Alucard, I mean, that's why he's calling himself Dr. Alucard. But Dracula wants to like be like the criminal crop in terms of socialite, so he has to knock Bruce Wayne off his pedestal. So he shows up at his little gala, and he gets infatuated by Vicky Vale. As he's pointing out, Vale is like, what a alluring kind of name. Of course, he has this little exchange with Bruce, and it's about, he's like, oh, culture, I'm in cultural anthropology. and he's like really laying on thick with like, you clearly are like some kind of Dracula here, because he's talking about like, I'm here from Eastern Europe, and like your Batman intrigues me. Like many cultures, see like yeah, well, you gotta see like I can't like get the line for line, but the way the dialogue is given is very not only laying on thick here, but is the fact that as Alucard puts it, how Batman is just another stepping stone from this long lineage of creatures of the night that use the shadows in order to uh, achieve certain goals that they can never do in the day, kind of situation. But then he hypnotizes Bruce in order to feed off of him, but thanks to Alfred interrupting, breaks the spell. Then he attacks one of the waiters there, wait staff there, and Alfred sees him and freaks out. Then Bruce then deduces like, oh, Alucard, because he realized, like, I got like this after talking with Alucard. Then he takes somebody's lipstick and like a serving tray and draws the word Alucard, shows it to Mary, and says Dracula. So now I was like, okay, we gotta deal with this. So he figures out that the first, because all the missing people, because they turned vampires almost every night. One of the first victims was a watchman that was attacked at the cemetery. So he goes to the cemetery and he gets attacked by a SWAT team, because with so many of the lost ones and one eyewitness blaming there was some Dracula looking, no, he didn't use the word Dracula, but he assumes it was a Batman, given how Batman operates is not too dissimilar to how maybe like a vampire would attack. So they don't know it was vampires yet or at all. They just assume it was Batman. And this could easily be like, something that happens. You can say this happens somewhere between or after season 1 of the Batman, maybe. So they attack. Batman, tries to run away, and they give chase. It heads to this building, and I completely forgot about this whole entire thing. But you see these cops getting picked off from the shadows one by one, and until a certain point, because I thought like Batman took out at least a couple of them. Then all of a sudden I was like, starting to know, it's like, no, like there's a couple of moments where it's like, oh, Dracula's here. But given how like Batman operates, he wouldn't be too far off from assuming that Batman secretly is like knocking out these guys one by one in the shadows using his ninja moves. But he hasn't done it at all. It was all Dracula. He just swooping in and just taking out and turning these guys. Then he finally has like a one-on-one talk with Batman, and it's like, I appreciate you like carrying on my legacy, but there's only one room in the city for one Batman. And you see Batman, before he went out, he had Alfred coated his weapons in like garlic, and of course Dracula's a lot faster than Batman, despite Batman's skill level is still human, and he's not able to like really go toe to toe fairly against somebody like Dracula. But it's just fun to see where like Batman's pulling all the stops, whipping out these batarangs. And I love the look of these. It's probably my favorite depiction of batarangs, where it's kind of this whole blue neon edges to like the black, and it's very cool, a very Tron looking kind of aesthetic when it comes to this version of Batman. I really dig it. And this version of Batman in the TV show, you get to see him utilizing certain, you know, like like a bat bot situation when tangling with Bane for the first time, or upgrading his vehicle a couple of times, or utilizing, different bat suits to tangle with certain uh foes, like a heat uh thermal bat suit to tangle with Mr. Freeze, or a heat resistant suit, I think, when he's dealing with either Firefly or Phosphorus. But in other Batman stuff, you rarely really see, well, maybe Baby and Bold at least a couple of times, but this one is, you get to see Batman really utilize certain bat suits more so than any other interpretation, which I really really dig. But anyway, Batman's trying to take on this guy, and unlike in my Castlevania review where you see Victor Trevor Belmont punching that Dracula, where it's like, that Dracula was not flinching at all, and he's just like, might as well be hitting like a wall or something. And this, because maybe Batman is obviously better trained, he actually, when he lands a hit, it causes this Dracula to reel back from the blow, but probably not too effective, but effective enough to have him flinch a bit. But then Dracula just like a push on Batman. He just went flying back, into a wall. It's like, Jesus, very cool. But then they go on this chase on the rooftops, and then Batman's trying to pull off certain moves, and Dracula's way too fast, and he slices his grapple line and lands on the car. And right as Dracula has Batman at his mercy, the sun happens to be rising at that moment, so Dracula had to make an escape. And I love the look where he's just like fading into the shadows as it's like, peeling back from the sunlight, and he just disappears altogether. Really cool animation. And so Batman gets back to the Batcave. He's banged up as hell. It's like, this guy is just on a whole nother level. Now he's having nightmares, and you see this quite a bit in most Batman TV shows, but more so, I used to say, in the Batman, where because Batman's villains are like a flip mirror, a crack mirror of him, where you see like what would be Batman or Bruce Wayne if he chose a different path. He'll end up like this villain. Like, if Bruce Wayne was done ill will with his money, he'll just be Oswald Cobblepot. So you see Batman, Bruce Wayne having nightmares about Batman being like a vampire, very like Batman Red Rain. Now he's like, second guessing himself, like, what I'm gonna do, how I'm gonna combat somebody who's way stronger than me, way faster than me, and has centuries of experience. So that's when eventually, when one day, it was like around like when the sun's about to go down, Penguin sees Joker, and Joker managed to, like, surprise, he survived, and so he still wants that treasure. So Penguin tries to stop Joker from going to Dracula's crypt, but he's unable to stop him. So Joker opens up Dracula's casket. He gets turned, and so now Joker pops up at a blood bank, And um, this is not just with Joker, but with all of those these lost ones. Joker's clothes has a muted shade from the brighter shade from what he normally wears, and these people who will turn eventually get turned back, and the shading of their clothes gets back to be a brighter shade. I'm not sure why. I know why they chose that in the animation, but just you can let it go because it's a cartoon, but it's like really it wouldn't make any sense because like, oh, you drained the not only the color out of the character but also their clothes as well. It's kind of it's a nitpick, but it's like I don't want to say it's dumb, but it's like this really wasn't needed. But I guess I don't say theatrically, but it's just aesthetically, I guess you have to make that look a certain way. Anyway, Batman shows up and sees that not only Joker's alive, but he's also a vampire. And I love this. The whole scene is super creepy, where Joker just using his vampire skills, just like hiding behind. It's just like the way like the animation look when Batman's walking down the corridors and you see behind these vials of blood or whatever, you see Joker's face just like just following along. Is really creepy, and he's crawling on the walls. It's very like like The Grudge or something. And Batman takes him on. And I also gotta say, I'm glad they kind of really lean in with. I'm not sure if they have to talk with studio execs or whatever to get this pushed through, because you don't see it in a TV show, but you see people bleeding, and not like grotesque gore porn. I'm talking about like like you see people getting bitten on the neck, drops of blood. Penguin cuts his hand, and you see the cut bleeding, and you have vials of these bloods that's broken open and raining blood on top of Joker, and he's lapping it up. They actually like you're dealing with a vampire, you actually have to have blood involved. So they kind of, I won't say it wasn't R-rated, but they pushed the boundaries of this. I think it's PG-13. It has to be PG-13, right? I don't know, but it has to, in order to make to allow that whole blood situation to happen, because it's definitely not PG. So Batman then knocks out Joker with like this garlic gas bomb, and then takes him back to the Batcave in the lower levels so he can test his blood in order to find a cure. And as Batman put it, this vampirism may be rooted in the supernatural, but vampirism, the act itself is transmuted like a disease, and that is science, which he can arguably treat. And like leave it to Batman to find like a scientific cure to vampirism. And given he spent like a few days working on this almost non-stop, even to the point of ignoring Vicky Vale's calls. It's like, some might argue, okay, this is almost way too easy even for Batman to like figure out a cure to vampirism. Yeah, sure, he has the technology and the time he needs, but he probably would have needed like a team of people, not just him and Alfred, in order to figure out a possible cure. Because anybody else, they would just stick these people and be done with it. But given the type of movie this is, like, they got to find like a cure. But Blade, if you deal with Blade, he will argue there is no cure. What's done is done. And I really wish there was some kind of explanation on how he was led to figure out what was needed to cure vampirism, and at least in this particular movie, what he needed to do in order to stop it. And of course, it was a combination of using his solar radiation containment unit in order to test to see, like, oh, hey, this, we're trying to use it to eliminate the vampiric cells, but not the human cells along with it. It was a little trial and error, but he eventually got it, and he eventually cured Joker. But then Vicky Vale gets kidnapped by Dracula because he wants to revive his bride Carmilla, the most infamous person in history who killed a bunch of women and bathed in their blood, and some say that she was like a vampire. So in the movie, she was turned to ashes. Somehow he collected all those ashes and decides to do a ritual in order to transfer Vicky's spirit with Carmilla's spirit, so Carmilla have a new body to inhabit. But Batman interrupts. He can only figure out where he is. They are in the catacombs beneath the Gotham cemetery. He takes all these vampire minions, kills them with like the injection of the cure. They all are revived, and whoever police officers that were turned, they revived and escorted all the innocent people to the surface. While Batman is taking on Dracula, Batman for a brief moment was like struggling against Dracula's influence, and this is where you got Batman getting his or at least Bruce having his moment in his mind. It's like like how would I put this? It's like, I'm not like, you're yesterday's news essentially. I'm Batman. Like, just gathering that willpower and that courage and reminding himself why he's doing this what he does. He's not going to allow Dracula to take over his city and hurt the people he cares about. It's like, I'm the goddamn Batman. And he sees little Bruce in that cave he fell in, and that bat creature flying towards him, reminding him who he is, and surprising Dracula, like, nobody's broken my out of my influence before. And so Batman then, while Vicky's being chased by Oswald and she's held by the police and he gets captured, but at the same time he ironically finds that treasure at like a different spot altogether, but can't really enjoy it. But then Batman decides to lead, when you figure out that this catacombs leads not too far from the Batcave, he leads Dracula on this little chase towards the Batcave. And thanks to help with Alfred, he gets Dracula in the spot where he needs to, so he can turn on the solar radiation unit, has that the solar radiation shine brightly, and you see Dracula up against the wall, counting from the bright light, and he looks up and he sees you're yesterday's news. I'm Batman. You see him put up his billow in his cape, and you see the bat ears and everything like that, and it's like, because it's kind of like a reverse of what happened in their first fight on the rooftops, where you see Batman's shadows get swallowed up by Dracula's shadow. But now it's reverse, where it's like now Dracula's getting overtaken by Batman's shadow. Batman has surpassed you. He will be you will be remembered. He has upstaged you to the point where you are just non-existent no more. Nobody remembers you. They will always remember Batman now. Uh, uh, and so he gets destroyed by the solar light and destroyed. Now Penguin is just like getting blamed for the whole Lost One situation, and the news just, write a piece about like, oh, like, there was this treasure that Oswald was just kidnapping these people to dig through and find, and but Penguin is like, no, it was vampires. I tell you, it was vampires, a big hawking fangs. And the movie ends with Batman overlooking his city, and knowing that, like, he saved the world from a vampire pandemic. But this movie is really good. I really enjoyed it. I'm not sure how many people to this day like the animated film. I think it's up there in terms of one of the best Batman animated films, arguably. I already did like a Batman movie tier list ranking a couple of years ago, but only for the live action films. I might come back after eventually I cover a little bit more, because I haven't seen every Batman animated film before. There's a handful, but not everyone, because there is a period where like DC animated films weren't really like, up to snuff, and I just didn't really care to, the materials, from what reviews I've seen, like Batman Robin and like Batman Hush, and even to like the Batman Long Halloween animated film, there's been like people from what I heard still enjoyed it, but there's still some issues. I might check out the Long Halloween animated film, because I know I did like the Long Halloween Elseworld story, didn't I? Could have sworn I did like a spoiler review for that comic book. Could be wrong. It's been I've done so much of this stuff at this point I can't not remember. Yeah, I did do the Long Halloween. It was one of my earliest ones. Yeah, I mean, like I got done like a ton of like Batman movie reviews live on YouTube, so you can check them out. On my YouTube channel. So if you're curious to hear my thoughts on that, it's like a lot of that stuff was like my early, days of, at least not my early, but just like probably like the second year of me doing live reviews. But anyway, let me know in the comments below what you think of Batman versus Dracula animated film, and I will see you guys in a few minutes because I have a comic book review of Constantine Hellblazer. So look forward to that in a little bit, and I'll see you all later. Peace.